Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video we're going to be taking a first look at War Veteran Richard. This is going to be the Mythic War Season 6 character going into the War store for the season to come. Visually, I think he looks pretty cool actually. I think he looks pretty cool. We haven't had a Richard in the Mythic era, which is kind of surprising because I think he has been a bit of a favourite character in previous eras, maybe not in some of the more recent ones, but back in the 5-star era there was quite a few Richards, so yeah, it's a little bit surprising, but he is kind of a cool character. The art on the right hand side, you can see he's holding a default pistol. Doesn't look like he's going to have an attached weapon. You can see a bit more of an advanced pistol on the left hand side, giving me proper like Star Wars vibes by the looks of things. The background of this also looks really cool. You can see it says like Kingdom Hilltop, and I guess it would be Alexandria on the right hand side, would be like the hat with the skull and crossbones. I'm pretty sure it'll be like that. Yeah, visually it looks really cool. If we look at the stats at Limit Break 3, level 1,440, he has got 22,609 attack, 31,653 defense, and 36,174 HP. He is an alert character, of course, holding that pistol. He's going to be a tank, God Mythic, of course, as well, and he will be joining the Militia Allegiance, which we haven't seen anyone join for quite a little while, so that is actually kind of interesting. Now, first up, we'll look at the Adrenaline Rush, and you can see the visuals on it, like the actual art looks actually kind of cool, like spinning the pistol on his finger. It's called Retribution, which is interesting because that is actually a specialist skill. Recharge rate of 66 AP. This fighter gets 50% halo for 2 turns, dealing 10% of this fighter's living team's attack as damage to a line of enemies. 2 other teammates get 100% attack for 1 turn. So this is extremely weird, honestly, for a tank character. A character that I would primarily see as a defense team character. It looks like it's actually going to be more of a support character for an attack team. You know, this character getting Halo for 2 turns does work into other parts of his kit in terms of keeping the survivability up so that he comes back if he does get taken out. He's not likely to get focused, but if he does get taken out, he will come back if he's not the last character alive based on his specialist skill. Dealing 10% of this fighter's living team's attack as damage to a line of enemies is actually pretty significant damage, honestly. Even though his attack stat is not very high, if you have 2 heavy damage dealers on the team, 1535s around, you can easily get like 500,000 attack on an attack team. That means he's going to deal 100,000 attack to a line of enemies. That's actually pretty decent. That's generally going to do, crazy damage to 2 characters. The last part is also really, really good because it's 2 other characters getting this buff. And if he does his rush first, he'll buff them for potentially their rushes, and 100% attack boost on a damage dealer is obviously really good. You're going to basically amplify the thing that they're going to be doing. And the fact that it goes to 2 characters means it's got more chance of landing on someone who is actually a damage dealer. So let's test this out. But like I say, it does feel really kind of strange because this guy is a tank. Very defensive stats, but this primarily looks like a support rush for an attack team. Okay, so here we are on attack, and we have got the Adrenaline Rush of Richard up. I can say the attack stat of my team here is 300,000 total, so not crazy high. I did put an extra character in here in Georgia just to get the attack up a little bit. This rush will obviously do damage, then buff my teammates, of which could be someone who's already taken their turn. For instance, Laura did command Richard, and she could potentially get the attack buff. We'll do the Adrenaline Rush here, and we should do around 30k damage. It's not going to take their defense rating into account, so that's actually pretty good. So regardless of how much damage you do, it's going to be consistently doing that damage to HP and bonus HP. Now you can see the characters that got the 100% attack are Georgia and Laura. It does only last for 1 turn, so you definitely want to do Richard's rush before anyone else gets their go. As much as landing on Laura isn't going to really give you the bonus you want, it is obviously decent if it lands on Georgia. So make sure you save it on, like I say, save those damage dealer rushes and signature moves until you take War Veteran Richard's turn. The Halo's there. Like I said, that just plays in a little bit to another part of his kit. So I think it is actually pretty interesting that it doesn't take the defense team's defense rating into account. It is just going to deal flat damage. I think that's a big boost to this. Obviously, like I said, you get up to 500,000 overall attack for your attack team. Then it'll deal 50,000 flat damage to each of those characters, 100,000 total. The higher you go, the higher the damage. Attack buffs do obviously boost this damage as well. So if everyone's got 50% attack boost, that massively increases this because it's the overall damage of the team. Now, if we look at the upgrades, you can see at grade 2, it gets plus 5% damage. So initially it is just 5% and it gets boosted up to 10%. At grade 4, it gets an upgrade where 2 other teammates get 50% attack for 1 turn. At limit break 1, another upgrade comes in where this fighter gets 50% halo for 2 turns. And then at limit break 3, it gets plus 50% attack boost on that buff that he gives out to 2 teammates. So not too bad on the upgrades. He will have the damage of this rush off extremely early. He'll also have the extra boost to the attack stat for teammates quite early on as well, after just 1 copy. Obviously, you probably just want to wait to 2 copies to at least level this character up, but on an attack team, he should actually be pretty decent just after 2 copies, because his defensive stats are really high, and he doesn't rely on attack stat as an individual. He's still going to be able to deal significant damage with this adrenaline rush, which is, like I say, pretty interesting. You could even command him turn 1, if you wanted to get this damage off, and then boost particular character signature moves. Like I say, there's a couple of ways you could go this. It doesn't seem too terrible, even though it does seem extremely strange in how they've decided to do this. It is very oddball character for sure, but it does work. He will do significant damage, he will buff teammates, and he'll give himself a bit of survivability as well. This rush isn't bad by any stretch. Now, if you did want to use him on a defense team, because his defense team stats would obviously be decent, his overall attack is not going to be as good, but then again, he's going to come up against attack team characters that overall HP is not going to be as good. So even if the overall attack stat of your defense team was like 150k, he's going to be dealing 15,000 damage to 2 characters in a line, which is actually pretty significant on attack team characters because they generally only have like 20 to 25k base HP. So it still isn't bad for a defense team. So overall, I do think the Adrenaline Rush is decent, even if it does feel strange on this particular character. Now, moving across to the signature move, it is called Shock Charge. Initial cooldown of turn 1, cooldown of 2 turns, number of uses unlimited. Remove 100% of current bonus HP and deal 10% of all living enemies' defense as damage to a line of enemies. This is really interesting, and it kind of lines him up, again, mainly to be an attack team character. The bonus HP removal is good, because obviously if someone's got 100,000 base HP and they've already got like 80,000 bonus HP, you don't want to have to go through the bonus HP first. This is just going to remove that. So effectively you could see that as doing like 80,000 extra damage in this particular case. And then it deals 10% of all living enemies' defense as damage to a line of enemies. So he's using his team's attack on his Adrenaline Rush, and then he's basically using the enemy's defense on the signature move. Very interesting. This is off of turn 1 again, and this should also have the same effect as the Adrenaline Rush, where it doesn't take the enemy's defense rating into account when it, actually deals the damage. It should just be flat damage dealt against the HP, and they will definitely have no bonus HP. Okay, so we're going to do another attack, and this time we're going to come up against a team that is going to have a pretty decent defense rating. There's some early defense buffs in here. There's a lot of bonus HP. I did just throw in Nor just to show you the bonus HP removal. We're going to target the top line. I'm going to do the signature move. The overall defense of this team, I can't actually remember. I think it was close to 450k. We'll actually see, obviously, what it is, because you just times whatever this damage is by 10, and then that will be it. The bonus HP should get removed first. Then it should apply 10% of the enemy team's bonus, their actual defense rating, including the boost that they've got from that buff. And then obviously it will just bypass the defense rating as well. It will just be flat damage. We'll do the signature move. Bonus HP removed, and you see it did like 45k damage there, just flat damage. It was around 450k, I think, on the defense rating. Obviously, the higher the enemy's defense rating is, the more damage that War Veteran Richard is going to do. So if you come up against an alert team that is full alert and has the alert buffs weapon where they all have 50% defense, this signature moves is going to do huge amounts of damage. That doesn't happen off of turn 1 though, but you know, when it resets after 2 turn cooldown, obviously that damage is going to get massively boosted. Now, while you have less control over how good this is going to be, because obviously the defense rating of the defense team is based on how many characters are going to be alive and how well they're kitted out from the enemy. Basically, the harder the defense team is, the better damage this should potentially do. Is kind of, you know, interesting in that case. Even if he doesn't take down the enemy, you can kind of see it where 100% of the bonus HP is going to be removed, and that character is going to have taken reasonably significant damage that you can set up, you know, damage for other characters to do afterwards. So you don't necessarily need to see it as an actual be-all and end-all. It has to one-shot a line of characters. He can just, like I say, set it up for your teammates. 100% bonus HP removal is very useful indeed. If we look at the upgrades here, you can see at grade 3 there's going to be an upgrade where it deals 5% of all living enemies defense as damage to a line of enemies. That's how it's going to be like when it initially comes in at grade 3. At grade 5 it gets -1 to starting cooldown, so it goes from turn 2 starting cooldown down to a turn 1 starting cooldown. Then at limit break 2 it gets a 5% damage increase where it will deal 10% of all living enemies defense as damage to a line of enemies. Like I said in previous clips and the intro on this signature move, this is going to include the buffs. So like I said, the bigger the buffs, the 100% defense buffs, the 400% defense buffs on someone like Sebastian Milton, this is going to massively buff the damage output. And yeah, like if you had like 2 or 3 characters with 400% defense buffs, this could potentially one-shot a line of characters that has 100k plus, just because the amount of defense rating that team will have as a whole will be massively increased. So this is actually really interesting. Again, it's kind of weird, but it does work. Again, kind of lines him up to be more of an attack team character, but it would still work to a certain extent if this character was on a defense team, just because the same sort of situation, as much as the defense rating of the attack team is not going to be very high, neither is their HP. Same sort of situation with the adrenaline rush. Now next up we're going to be looking at Richard's mythic abilities. These are his passive skills. He is of course a tank, so he's going to get strength where he gets 40% critical hit resistance. He also has true grit where he gets 100% impair resistance. This is pretty decent. It means he's obviously going to have more chance to get that adrenaline rush off. Impair is not really that prevalent on defense teams or on attack teams, honestly. It isn't like that big a deal, but it's just nice to have a resist. It is a resist that you probably wouldn't prioritize in your mods, so this is just a big bonus. The next one is called Squad Goals. Militia teammates get 30% attack, all other teammates get 10% attack instead. So this guy is actually just going to boost the attack of all teammates. This happens off the base screen, so like off the stats screen. It isn't going to be a buff, so it obviously stacks with buffs if you have other characters that come in with that do buffs, like Dale and characters like this. So yeah, pretty nice indeed. Then the last one is called 2 for 1. When this character is revived, 100% chance to revive a random teammate with 10% of their max HP. This is interesting. He does have self-revive capabilities to a certain extent with that Halo, but the potential that he can just revive a teammate is kind of nice. Obviously that teammate would then get their turn. When it happens, you generally get revived on your own turn. It can sometimes happen on the enemy's turn if they, you know, there's characters that revive teammates when enemies are taken down. There could be like a chain revive there. Imagine like there's a Carl on the defense team and you take down a teammate of Carl's and Richard is already down. It could revive Richard, and then Richard, because he got revived, the 2 for 1 could proc and it could revive someone else. Even if they only have 10% HP, it's just annoying. It's just annoying. Okay, so we have got Richard been taken out. This is just to show the revive potential here. I want to see if the chain can happen. Let's see if it can happen with Carl. I'll do a takedown with Sophia. We pick up Richard. Do we pick up the other character? We did. So it actually can just, I mean, you just saw it. You just saw what happened. That is actually pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie. That is pretty funny. This is how it can work when it's not your turn. When it is your turn, obviously, and you use another character to revive Richard, you know, he will potentially revive another character with 10% of their HP. Now, I can take this character down quite easily, But if that was my last attack of the turn, obviously they're like potentially going to heal up on the next turn, so on and so forth. But yeah, that was kind of funny. Now going straight into the upgrades on the passives, you can see at grade 1, True Grit Part 1 comes in, where it'll be 50% impair resistance for Richard. At grade 2, it'll be 20% critical hit resistance for Richard. And at grade 3, it'll get 100% impair resistance, because it obviously teams up with True Grit Part 1. Then at grade 4, in comes Squad Goals Part 1. Militia teammates will get 15% attack, and all other teammates will get 10% attack instead. That 15% attack will obviously buff Richard himself. He is a militia character. At grade 5, 2 for 1 Part 1 comes in, where this fighter is at grade 5, 2 for 1 Part 1 will come in. When this fighter is revived, 50% chance to revive a random teammate with 10% of their max HP. Then when we move on to the limit breaks, you can see at OE1, Strength 2 comes in, where it'll be 40% critical resistance total. At limit break 2, Squad Goals 2 comes in, where it'll go up to 30% attack for militia teammates and 10% attack for all other teammates instead. Then at LB3, 2 for 1 2 comes in, making it a 100% chance to revive a random teammate with 10% of their max HP when this character is revived. It's guaranteed on a defense team, even if the character that is taken out in the situation where you saw with Carl is the character that revives Richard, it will revive them back. That was just kind of hilarious to see. But regardless of how he's revived, if there is someone else on the floor that is in a revivable state, not decapped and not 100% heal reduction, then they should be getting picked up by Richard as well. The passives are kind of interesting. They kind of play into attack and defense. The militia one maybe is not that great for a defense team, but it will boost the attack stat of everybody, thus boosting his adrenaline rush. Obviously, this character does seem to be leaning more towards an attack team, but he could be still reasonably useful on a defense team if you are short on characters to use on defense. Considering you need 15 to 20 characters for defense teams and tower teams, if you haven't got the most massive roster, this character is definitely usable. Now, we have touched on it a couple of times. The specialist skill is going to be Outlast. When this specialist is defeated, their death is delayed by 1 turn, during which they may still take an action, and they receive 100% AP. Now remember, he will give himself Halo when he does his adrenaline rush, which is what this is actually going to allow him to do. And obviously he will buff teammates when this happens as well. When he gets revived from his own Halo, he should revive a teammate. I'll test this out in just a second, but the chain reaction here could be actually pretty decent. I don't think this is going to be as good on an attack team, because he will likely not be taken out too early. But if you do use him on defense, this could pop up and be very frustrating to deal with quite consistently, because he will obviously revive at the beginning of his own turn and then instantly revive someone else, and they will be able to take their turn, which could be a nice signature move, or they get the bonuses from signature moves. So as much as they'd only have 10% of their max HP, it's just a nice little bonus. Let's test it out. Now, as you can see, we have managed to take down Richard and put him into the Outlast state. I'm just going to hit the defend action. He should use his adrenaline rush, and he'll do 10% of his current team's attack stat, give himself Halo for 2 turns, and then when it goes back to their turn on the next turn, he'll revive, and then also revive the other teammate that was on the floor that was in the revivable state. This is going to happen every time. If you use Vance on an attack team, you kind of know how the Halo potential is on attack. However, it is going to be, like I say, reasonably difficult to see him being actually targeted. He's more of a, like I said, this is kind of just the only real problematic part of this kit, in my opinion, when it comes to actually being able to occur on a regular basis. Unless you come up against a fully tough team and he's 100% the guy getting focused, that's the only way I could really see it. But it's not terrible by any stretch. It does work into other parts of his kit, obviously, because of how the revive works on his passives and so on and so forth. So it's not too terrible. I just don't think it will occur too often on an attack team, in my opinion. Now, when it comes to the weapon he's got, it's a default weapon. You can put whatever you want in his hands. You could go for an attack-based weapon and rely on his base stats just to give boosts when it comes to the defense and HP for survivability. and then try and increase that attack a little bit more. It will multiply with that passive for militia characters getting attacked. So he should get half decent attack stat, even though his attack stat is extremely low to begin with. It'll boost the adrenaline rush damage, or you could lean more into defense to try and boost that signature move. It's obviously up to you how you want to go here. You could go for just a more stat-based weapon. Obviously, he does need AP on attack if you do want to get that rush in decent, timing. Otherwise, you're going to be looking at like turn 4, potentially even turn 5 if you're kind of unfortunate. On a defense team, he isn't going to be super fast when it comes to rushing, but that signature move off of turn 1, like I say, should be pretty decent. So this is War Veteran Richard, and he is kind of a bizarre character. Everything does work, but it is very strange. I will say it is kind of cool for the fact that he is reasonably heavy damage dealer on attack, all things considered, as a support character, but he still has decent usability on a defense team. I think this is nice for an accessible character for people who are going into the War Store, who maybe are newer to the game or don't have like the biggest rosters. He can be used on attack and defense teams. That shouldn't be too much of a problem. He can't be used on an attack and a tower team though. If you put a team in a tower, that team is non-accessible. That is whatever, for whatever reason. I'm not really sure why. So like I say, kind of weird character, but kind of interesting at the same time. It'll be interesting to see what people come up with this character. I definitely think he has some decent potential. You could use him on a more like effect-based attack team and just rely on the kind of overall attack stat of a team. Not too crazy, but obviously the overall defense rating on the defense team. Like I say, very interesting. We'll have to see how it goes, but an oddball character for sure. But don't write him off. I think he has maybe some decent potential for some people out there for sure. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about War Veteran Richard. Like I said, he will be going into the Mythic Season 6 War Store, and you can pick him up over the course of the War season. And looking at his kit, he should have decent usability, even from as low as grade 5, which is also a thumbs up from me when it comes to a War Store character. But that is it in my video, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.